What's the crack? Welcome back to another video. My name is Dan if you're new here, and you may have gotten a drone for Christmas, or you might have gotten someone a drone, or maybe you're thinking of buying a drone. There's something you should be aware of, and that's that in the UK the drone laws changed as of December 31st, 2020. There's a little bit to the new laws, so I've gone through them and tried to simplify it, make it as quick as possible and as easy to understand. And the new laws also have an added twist, specifically depending on what drone you fly, so stick around towards the end for that, because it might determine on what drone you're actually going to buy if you haven't got one already. These laws also cover more than drones, such as unmanned aerial vehicles. If anyone in the UK has anything like that, I'd be impressed, to be perfectly honest, as well as model airplanes and helicopters, that type of thing. So it's not just for drone users, it's for anyone who flies any type of vehicle in a public space, pretty much. There are three main classifications that the Aviation Authority uses. They are A1, A2 and A3. At the moment, all we care about is A1 and A3. So there are one or maybe two things you now need in the UK to fly legally and safely, and they are a flyer ID and an operator ID. Depending on which type of drone you have, you may need both, you may only need one. The flyer ID is needed by the person flying a drone. If you want to fly a drone, you need a flyer ID, with some exceptions, but we'll get into that in a second. The flyer ID doesn't cost anything and it's valid for 5 years. There is a test on the Civil Aviation's website. It's a 40-question test. The pass mark is 30, and you're allowed to have the website open in another tab. You really can't fail, to be honest. I passed it first time. It's pretty easy. The operator ID is needed for the person who owns the drone, the person who's responsible for the drone, and it costs £9, valid for 1 year only. And once you've got your operator ID, you're required now by law to mark that onto all of your drones or model airplanes or whatever it is. It's a unique number, alphanumerical number, I suppose. I don't know how I feel about that because I don't really want to write on my drone. I don't have a label maker. So I suppose I'd have to like Sharpie it onto my drone, I don't know. But yeah, so that costs £9 and it's valid for 1 year. And you also have to be 18 years old to apply for that, as far as I'm aware. Digging into this, what it sort of means is that I think anyone under 18 can't be the legal owner or operator of a drone, but they can fly it as long as they have supervision. Specifically, if they're under the age of 12, they have to have adult supervision. The person supervising them has to also have a flyer ID, and I think they have to be the operator of that drone. This is what my flyer ID looks like. You print it out and just keep it with your drone at all times. That way, if you're ever asked for it, you can provide it. You didn't get anything to print out your operator ID, so I had to just write that down. It's just a separate code. Okay, so drones are now split into 5 categories, which I will put here. And depending on what category your drone is in will determine whether you need a flyer ID and an operator ID or just a flyer ID. This is, I said it gets complicated. I'm trying to make it sound as easy as possible. So as you can see, there's C0, class 0, and there's 3 of them. So you've got toy, not a toy, and not a toy with a camera. So for example, a Mavic Mini is not a toy with a camera. More specifically, it's under 250 grams. Which means you don't need an operator ID, you just need a flyer ID. C1 to 4 are all over 250 grams, so you need both an operator ID and a flyer ID. So what do those classes mean? Well, this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting, because depending on what drone you have will depend on how you're allowed to legally fly it. So this is where it gets interesting, because if your drone is in class 0, say you've got a Mavic Mini or a Mini 2, it is under 250 grams. You're allowed now to fly it closer than 50 meters to people. You're allowed to fly it over people, and you're allowed to fly it in areas such as recreational, industrial, commercial. However, if your drone is heavier than 250, you're not allowed to. So if you have any other drone, class 1 to 4, you're not allowed to fly it in any of those places. You can't fly it at a beach, you can't fly it over your house, you can't fly it in a park, you can't fly it anywhere. One thing they did stipulate was it doesn't matter on the class of drone or the weight that you have, no drone is allowed to fly over crowds. So if there's a crowd of people in any of those places, say a beach or a park, you're not allowed to fly over them. And they sort of say a crowd is a group of people that would have no easy means of escape should something go wrong. So like a back garden, maybe if there was people in having a barbecue, you wouldn't be allowed to fly over them at all. Okay, so here's the biggest stipulation, and I think maybe a little bit of a drawback, but also a chance that people can jump on. These laws are sort of being phased in, so from 2022 onwards, drones have to be sold with a classification on them, so from C0 to C4. That way then they're easily identifiable as what way they can be flown. Currently drones are sold and classified based on their weight. In 2022 it won't be based on weight, it'll be based on the maximum takeoff mass. This is quite important. So a Mavic Mini, which is what I have, is 249 grams. That's what it weighs. So right now I can fly it anywhere, and I have the least restrictions on how I can fly it out of all the types of drones. In 2022, it'll be based on how heavy it can possibly be and still take off. So that means like if you put a propeller guard on it, it's going to be heavier than 249 grams, and therefore it's no longer classified as C0, which means I'm then restricted as to how I can fly it. This does have ramifications for other drones currently in the market and that people might have at home. If you've got a drone at home that's in a class now, in 2 years or in a year it'll be in a different class possibly, and you'll be restricted as to how and where it can fly. So what this possibly means is the best time to buy a drone is now, before these rules come into place, and the best drone to buy is one that's under 250 grams, because it's going to have the least amount of restrictions on it. So a Mavic Mini or Mini 2 will be the best drone for everyone to buy, especially if they're not going to use it very often, because you can fly it almost anywhere. So to summarize, if you are a new drone owner, maybe you got one for Christmas, or you're looking to get a drone, there are new rules in place. You will either need a flyer ID and or an operator ID depending on the type of drone that you have, which is broken down into 5 categories: below 250 grams and over 250 grams. There are different places where you'll be allowed to fly and how you can fly, and you may need a flyer ID and or an operator ID. These rules come into place next year, so the best time to buy a drone is now. I'll leave a link in the description for everywhere I got this information, including the UK Civil Aviation Authority. That's quite hard to say in a single breath. I'll also put all of the images that I used in this video on Twitter or something like that. If you want to follow me over there, it's at Dan Arnott. If you did get a drone for Christmas, or maybe you already had one, comment down below, let me know what type of drone it is. We can chat about it to see what class you have to be in and what's required of you so that you can fly legally. If you're thinking about getting a drone, ask me any questions. I'll try and find the answers if I don't already know. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. I did try to keep it short and sweet and condense all this information. It is a lot to go through. There's quite a lot of pages of info on the website, so I was trying to help everyone reading through it all so you didn't have to. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Fly safe if you're flying your drones. I don't think anyone's really going out right now. I wanted to go out and get some drone footage for this video, but I can't. I'm stuck inside. Such is life. Enjoy and see you next time.